All
That
right,
means
one, two,
yes,
three,
you're gonna
four,
be
five, or
more.
six. We'll talk about it, but I'm not ready yet.
Right.
Oh my
All
god.
right, we can jump off from there, even though it wasn't much of a transition. But yeah, we do have to move along here. The last movie is my movie called Maquia, When the Promised Flower Blooms, and I kid you not, guys, I bawled my eyes out with this movie. I did.
I bet you did.
I did it the first time, and the second time I did it more than I did the first time. Like, there were things that got me the second time I didn't think would. To paint the picture of what this movie's about real quick, it is about a tribe of people called the Eorf, and they are immortal. And essentially what they do is they record history or take down journals or diaries, but the way they do it comes in the form of a loom. And it really can only be read and written by them. They see the products of this loom and see the story that's told in it. No one else really can, because it's not a product of anyone else's culture. Because of their immortality, their tribe or clan is attacked by a neighboring nation. And in the fallout of the attack, one of the women from this tribe finds herself in a village that was recently raided, and finds a baby in its dead mother's arms, and she takes on raising the child. But the notion is that she's immortal, raising a human child, and so they keep on having to shift and adjust their lives because she's kind of on the lam. She's kind of on the run. She's kind of sought out for her immortality because people are trying to kind of use that, harness that. A royal family's trying to get immortality into their family. And so when people start to notice that she doesn't age at all, but her son does, they keep having to go somewhere where nobody knows them. And taking on the role of being a mother for this child becomes extremely challenging because even in a physical sense, her son is outgrowing her because she forever looks the same. The movie, this is a directorial debut by a woman named Mario Kata, who, I guess in the creative process, she had some concerns about making the right movie, and she was just kind of told by the higher-ups, like, we want a movie that's 100% you. She was like, okay. And so she made this movie. And that's what it's about. Earlier, I said that this is a movie you kind of won't see in live action. There is action, there are fight scenes, there are war scenes, there are battle scenes, but the forefront of this movie is the dynamic of a relationship between mother and son. And that's not a selling point. Like, that is not a movie that's going to... If this movie was made in live action, I don't think it'd make its money back with that being a selling point. People would want the war, the fighting, the castles, the dragons, the this, the that. The only reason that this movie kind of got a little bit of a tick from me is that there is one particular sequence of storytelling that, when I started the movie, I was kind of cleaning my room, but it dragged my attention too much and I had to keep watching it. But even with that, even with me going back and just watching this sequence, just without anything taking my attention, it was kind of confusing, and I wasn't really sure what happened or how much time had passed because it happened very, very quickly. And I'll get to that sequence in a bit, what it was. I mean, the movie ended, and I'm like, I should call my mom. See how she's doing. I have found that I have cried at more movies probably within the last 5 years than I have in the 15 or 20 years before that. I don't know what it is, but it's not super common, I feel like, for a movie to make me cry the second time I see it. That's happened very few times. Like in Everything Everywhere All at Once, I cried like 3 or 4 times and laughed until I cried 3 or 4 times. I didn't cry the second time I saw it. This movie I did. I still bawled. I knew this movie would always be a little bit of a risk coming forward because I know Joseph's not the biggest anime person and Rich is, but he's like action anime, man. He went home. We came home from school and watched Toonami. We watched Dragon Ball Z and Yu Yu Hakusho and Samurai Jack, even though that's not anime. But still, it was in the same like block of programming.
Yeah.
Joseph, what did you think about this movie? I'm curious to know, because you are not anime man, and I knew this movie would be kind of a risk to throw at you.
Yeah. I will first start by saying that I'm not like the biggest anime fan. I think it's a beautiful art form, and I've come to recognize that, so I can at least say that. There are certain projects where I will find myself being like, oh, I am invested in this world. I like the idea of it. I want to see more of it. Example, Tokyo Ghoul was a unique show to me. Demon Slayer is really interesting. I need to get caught up. I think that's probably my favorite anime show. That just gives like a feel for people. So like, yeah, this guy, he knows a little bit anime, like 0.5% of anime. That's how much I know. These guys are like in the 90s or 80s, maybe even 100% range. But yeah, I just want to start by saying that. So before people come at me,
he's not captain of the anime team. He's not captain of the squad.
I say that with like the world building and stuff for a reason, because I'll say what my score is at the end, but I was digging what they were trying to do with the world building, but then it kind of just falls apart for me right after the first act. It becomes more of this simplistic story, which I was like, okay, this is what it's going to be. Oh my god, it kind of just goes along for the ride. They're like, hey buddy, you better get ready for this emotional journey. Which, emotional, best way to describe this movie, I had it written down. There's a lot of crying.
Yeah, there is.
Like, the main character,
a lot.
Summarizing her, is just crying. She just cries every scene.
I cry a lot in her shoes, too.
And it's just, like, my wife was watching in the background, and she was like, why does she sound like that when she cries? And I'm like, I know. It's kind of a thing, I feel like, in anime where they...
Yes.
And I'm like, bro, why do they sound like they're about to... Never mind, I'm gotta keep it PG.
There's a lot of weird guttural sounds people make that humans don't make in real life. Like, if I turn around because I hear something behind me, I'm like... But in anime, they're like,
There's guys who hear that sound, they're like, oh, I love that sound. Oh, I love this movie. Yeah, just something that Alicia noticed too in the film. She was like, yeah, that's an interesting sound. And I was like, yeah, she cries a lot. It's crying, babe. It's nothing else. There's nothing else going on in the scene. Like she's like in the kitchen and she's just hearing that. I'm like, babe, I swear it's the movie. I swear to God. And it was.
Watch DBZ with your eyes closed one day. It's a totally different experience.
Oh my. I will. I guess I'll have to look that up and
such power.
That. And so, yeah, I want to get rid of the negatives first because I do have positives.
Sure.
World building, I felt like it had a promising start, and it kind of just... There were some things that I felt like they threw out there that were lost to me, and maybe I missed it, but just some of the ideas that they were going for, just... It led me into a direction where I thought it was going to go, and it kind of just stopped, if that makes sense. Like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to be more of an intimate, slow-paced movie. Okay, fine, let's do it. I'm down for some character development. It just was like an hour and 10 minutes till you get to the bombastic third act, which I thought was crazy. I love the last 25-30 minutes of the movie. Even though the movie kind of ends in 3 different scenes, that was another thing that I felt like. It was like, we're going to end here. Nope, we're going to end actually here. Yeah, no, we're actually going to end at the bed and with the flowers and stuff. I'm like, okay, this feels like they had 3 different endings. And I say that as a complaint, but also not really. So those were my only issues, was pacing. Felt like the pacing was off and the world building could have been a bit better fleshed out throughout the film. But when it comes to the themes, though, guys, like I gotta say, it's obviously at the end of the day, the movie is about being a single mother. What is it like being a son? What does it mean to care for someone? Like, what does it actually mean to like love somebody with all that you have? And what does it also mean? Like, what is death? It has all these themes that it's trying to throw at you, which I think for the most part works, which is why I give this movie a 6. It's just right there. It was going to be a 5. I was going to seriously give this movie, like, it's mediocre to me. Like, it's boring. It's just something I'm never going to watch again. But I give it a 6. It's okay. And it's because, and I wasn't crying at all throughout this movie. And I love crying. It is easy for this guy to cry. And then the scene happens at the ending. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Why am I... And this literally happened. At least... I cried right when she starts crying at the freaking ending.
Oh my gosh.
I can't keep my promise. I'm like, why did that ish get me so freaking hard?
And then all the flowers.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Up. It was best shot of the whole freaking movie.
Gorgeous.
It was beautiful. That's the other thing. It's a beautiful film. But yeah, I guess just the last thing I'll say, at least for this film, because I mean. I already said my negatives, and my pros are it's obviously beautiful. I think the moment that you realize for all the character work, character building, I still think it was a pacing issue though. I still think they could have cut out some stuff and put in a bit more interesting arcs to keep my attention, at least for me. But you do get that build up for that emotional impact right there. Mm-hmm. Like all their moments, the little flashbacks that you get when he was a kid or baby, then kid, teenager, young adult, now senior citizen.
Yeah, the first time I saw the movie and they started the montage, I was like, "You son of a bitch!"
Thanks, guys. Thanks. It got me, you know? That's what I'll say. That's why I give it a 6. It got me, and it made me bawl. Not gonna lie, it was like ugly bawling, and
yeah,
I started crying right when this happened, and Alicia's right next to me. She starts laughing. We like both synchronized both emotions. She's like, "I think that's hilarious," and I'm like,
"What's wrong with your wife?"
Yeah. She's just dying, having a good time. She's like, she's crying so weird.
Your wife is sadistic.
I'll show her this clip.
I'll leave it in.
Oh, I know you will. But it was just like, I can see why, because I almost thought about laughing too, because I'm like, she's doing that weird.
When you have your first kid, tell her to watch it again. It got me. That's all I'll say. That's why I give it a 6. Pacing was an issue. World building was an issue. But all that crappy pacing paid off, I guess, for those 2 seconds of crying from Joseph. Yeah. Because I seriously was like, man, this movie just does not really work for me. I can respect the animation. They did a great job. They were not slacking in that department. And... oh yeah, the husband, that guy pissed me off, or the king, the prince, or whatever. There were 2 that pissed me off. There's the king, who was just whiny and complaining and and then there was the prince, who was like, "Leave that monster behind." Like both of them, I was like, you can both burn.
Yeah, no, that dude.
She gave you everything you wanted, like. Not even gave, you took it from her. Yep. But still, they lock her. One of my favorite scenes in the movie, honestly, from a thematic sense, is the scene where
ooh, I think I know which one you're going to talk about.
Where Lelia is ripping all of the jewelry off.
Yep.
And she is furious. She's like, "I am bending over backwards to do everything I can, and all I want to do is hold my daughter. That is all I want to do." Where she rips off the jewelry and she's like, "I'm sick of the royalty. I'm sick of this treatment. I live a life that people would consider luxurious, and I hate it because all I want is to see my daughter."
And he's like, "That's cool, but..."
But how about no.
Right.
You know?
But no.
And I mean, the scene where she does finally see her daughter, I can see how this scene can be confusing. Because ultimately, what it boils down to is when she finally sees her, the way I kind of took it is to that daughter, Medmel. Medmel's mother has basically been the maid. It's a similar situation to what Maquia had with Ariel, where she never knew her mother, but she's had this other woman beside her whole life, and now the gap between them is so large that it's like, how do I even start a relationship with you now that I found you? When she's wandering through the castle while it's being raided and finds her. And honestly, I think the resolution that she comes to as a mother, that Lelia comes to, I think it's a heartbreaking resolution. Like, she resolves, I'm going to live forever. Forever. And in the grand scheme of my life, this is a sliver, and I'm going to not let it define me. But she knows that it's going to. She knows that it's going to. No matter how long her life is, this piece of her life is going to play a large part in defining who she is. Even if she feels like she can't bridge the gap with her daughter. It's sad. It's a heartbreaking conclusion. So she decides it would be better maybe to not live. But then Maquia saves her with the last fucking dragon on planet Earth.
Dang. And Lelia, the scene that was also really good with her was when she's talking to Maquia, and she has to go, and the prince is coming after them.
Oh, the hair.
And she's like, yeah, and she's like, don't you go. She's like threatening.
Yeah.
And pointing the, was it a knife to her stomach?
It was her hairpin.
Hairpin, that's
held up her
right.
hair.
That's when I was like, oh, okay, movie. We're going there right now.
Ooh.
We're getting that intense, which I found that scene to be intense, and then also the one you were talking about. I felt that to me got me.
Yeah,
like, I wasn't crying, but emotionally it was very impacting.
And this is a movie that, like, if people watch this movie, I think it kind of demands your attention. I don't think it's a movie that, like, I had to stop what I was doing, because honestly the movie just kind of grabbed me anyway. But, like, there was so much I forgot. I forgot that the cloths that this tribe weaves is like another language that only they can read and write and understand. That they're weaving down history, sending secret messages. The sequence I was talking about that was confusing for me involved, I want to make sure I get it. Was it Krim? Is that it? Yes, his name was Krim. Krim was one of the Eorfs. He was the guy. You remember, so the scene where Ariel leaves to go be a soldier, immediately after he leaves, she's kidnapped by Krim and held for several years. And just the way it was presented, it wasn't crystal clear. He holds her for several years because he feels like she abandoned the tribe by living with Ariel. And he, in this time, aligns and offers benefits to neighboring countries that want to attack Mazarte, where Lelia is being held, because he always loved Lelia. And I feel like it was just a lot cramped. For as bloated as some reviews have said the movie is, that crammed a lot of information into a very short period of time. In a matter of only a couple of minutes, we went to Ariel leaving home, to Ariel being a successful soldier with a pregnant wife.
That threw me off too.
It was a lot of information, arguably too fast. And it threw me into a place where I was like, I'm not 100% sure what's happening right now. I had to like rewatch that scene just to kind of recompute it, because it's a scene that sets up essentially the closest thing the movie has to an action-packed climax, so to speak. It's setting it up, but it's super fast. That's kind of the only thing that kind of dragged it down for me. How do you feel, Rich?
So yeah, this movie is definitely one of the most animes of all time. the thing about it is like the things that you're describing, Jack, is yeah, it's very much like that is this like, you know, art form, you know, like that long and intense the long and intense like emotional arcs, like there's just something about, I think, like the Japanese approach to emotion that I'm still I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to like break down for myself what that is. I can't quite put my finger on it. What culturally, yeah, what culturally is like going on there. But like there's just a certain amount of melancholy that exists in almost like all of their media. You know what I mean? Outside of just like the most rock'em sock'em, like, you know, shonen animes, you know, like Dragon Ball Z or, you know, something like that. But like most of them, yeah, they all have that touch. And a lot of times, like, they all deal with death. And what I've seen too is a lot of ones like in this like realm of genre have something to do with one unaliving themselves. Like, so like I knew as soon as what's her name, Lelia? Yeah, Lelia. As soon as she went out there and I saw there was that little ledge, I was like, oh yeah, she's jumping off that. There's no way she's not jumping up. I was like, I don't even know what's gonna happen out here. I don't know what's gonna happen. I just know.
Oh man.
Yeah, I just knew. I was like, oh yeah, she's jumping up.
But the
like,
way they made it
no
fit
way.
in and mesh with how she jumped at the beginning. At the beginning,
well, yeah,
she jumps because she's a carefree spirit, and at the end, she jumps because of everything.
Yeah, and so it was like, okay, yeah, like that's, and she gonna do the whole thing. I can fly, yeah, and so like, what, yeah. So when it happened, I'm like, yep, okay. And when you talk about a laughing moment, I ain't gonna lie, that was a moment where I just was like, I was cracking up because I was like, oh yeah, okay, knew it. Yeah, it was just like, it was going to happen because, like you said, the way that they telegraphed it, right? Which I think is a strong, like, storytelling, like, ability. I think it was actually really nice setup and callback because it happened so damn long ago in the movie. It happened like what feels like 7 hours ago in the movie. So like just like having that again, and I feel like, though, to your point, and I didn't think about it this way, but like how you said about like her like reclaiming her freedom, that might have kind of slipped in what that was, her finding that, but through death, right? How like life had almost kind of become a prison for her, and so
and like she's immortal, so it's like an eternal prison, really. Exactly.
So that it is her like act of freedom, or whatever. But yeah, I knew she was gonna jump off, and I thought it was hilarious when she did, like out of nowhere, because it's like she has a relationship with this kid has a relationship with her. Okay, part of what made it funny was like she was saying all this stuff. That's what had killed me, because that scene you were talking about, right? She was like ripping all. She was like, I just want to hold her. I just want to blah blah. I just yada yada. She just got done fight with old boy Krim or whatever his name is, and finally like getting out of there, and or maybe I'm thinking of Lelia. I don't know. She finally got out of whatever position she was in, fought for her life to get out of there. Then she gets out, finally has an opportunity to see this child she's been crying about forever. See her for like 2 seconds, like, oh yeah, I'm finna kill myself. And I don't know, something about the absurdity of like how that happened, it just got to me. And like, I don't know, it's like obviously obviously the actual like emotional like significance of what's happening is like not funny. It's not funny.
Right.
But it's like it's just like all of that just smashed together. I just could not help it. It's especially because like I just knew that's what she was gonna do. And so it's like just this moment of like where it's like such this I think that's what it was too. Because it was like a, even though like I just discussed, right, like there's this real like through line, and it's almost like like two bookends that happen, right? So like, you know, there's real like depth in it and depth within the storytelling and how they put things together. That being said, the way that things are juxtaposed, it's like you went from crying about seeing this child fighting to like get your freedom. You get both of those, and then you immediately rush to die. Like you barely say like 2 words to this kid, and then you're going to unalive yourself in front of her. You're gonna jump off of a ledge directly in front of her. And then, so all that was just like the absurdity of it. For me, I think is what caused me to like laugh and break. But then she gets saved, you know, the dragon, also the kind of stuff. And I love how the dragon was like, cool. Oh yeah, like you didn't know that the dragon could still fly. And dragon's like, yeah, I could fly. Are you kidding me? That dragon looked like, yeah, I could fly. But as far as the film as a whole, I think to what you were saying, Jack, I do agree that it felt like it was like 2 different stories that happened. There's like the story of the world as it relates to the mother and the son, right? And really like the mother's journey, but the mother's journey is so like inextricably tied to relationship to her son, right? So like that's the world that we're like living in, and seeing the consequences of that, having 2 individuals that are honestly on like opposite ends, like whether you want to talk about socially and even if you want to talk about physically, right? Like they're on two opposite paths. And it was always going to come apart. But she didn't know that. She didn't realize, right? Like she was still a kid, really kind of at that point, and didn't understand things, you know. And so there's a lot that they were learning together. But yeah, so we have this like, you know, interpersonal drama there, this family drama, and are going through that. But then we have the story of like this grand world, like you said, this like incredible. We get thrust into this stuff with like dynasties, war, right? Like kingdoms, you know, like beasts, right? All these other kinds of things. We get thrust into this right from the very beginning, and then once she finds the baby, right, and like literally pries the baby from the dead mother's hand, then like we're in the other story at that point. We're in the story of just like that emotional journey of her emotional journey, the effects that the relationship has like on the son, right? And like and just that like, oh yeah, there are social consequences to this relationship that even go beyond just like when people start to notice that like she doesn't seem to age, right? Like just even like the confusion that Ariel would have like as a growing man, right? About like how to even feel and how to contextualize all that, you know? how to wrap his feelings up, especially being around other men that are not very like socially, they don't seem very like socially aware. They just seem like just regular casual guys. You know what I'm saying? Like they all convinced him to just drink and whatever else.
Slam hammered.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and are like, you know, see his mom is hot or whatever else, and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, you know, they're just regular dudes. But he is in a very irregular situation, and so he's caught in these like two worlds, of like also trying to keep this secret while also trying to like figure out his true feelings to
have a life. Have a
like,
place to call home that actually stays home.
Yeah, you know, and how to feel about this woman who he's called mom, but who he also feels estranged from, because he's like, because he learns that she's not physically his mom, and they're on two different paths, and that at the end of the day he can't protect her. You know, at the end of the day he knows he'll never be able to protect her ultimately, because one day he's gonna die. It just is what it is, and he knows that. And so there will always come a time where she will be without him, and so he won't be able to protect her. And so he has all these incredibly complex feelings and emotions. And yeah, it's very dense in that way. And so I understand and appreciate that break that they take. I also, to be honest, I really appreciate the time jumps, because it was weird because they felt seamless, even though they felt very like hard cut to the future. They didn't feel hard cut to the
only one of them felt, just that one I talked about felt kind of rough because it crammed the setup for the climax into a time jump too.
And I'm glad you had even expounded on that, because I had no idea. That's one that I was confused. I was like, I don't know what just happened. Like, I don't know, and I don't know why she's here. I don't know what, right? So
when her window opens and that potted plant hits the ground and the foot comes through the window, that's Krim kidnapping Maquia.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, like I like the way they did it. They didn't always keep doing all this, you know, like 20 years. It's just like they're older.
Yeah.
Like they're just older, and you could see that. You could see like, okay, Arrow's become a badass. Like he, you know what I'm saying? Like he went in as just some kid, and you know, now he's you know, he's that guy, you know. And so I think that was cool. I think that like exploring that kind of like even dynamic, again, the divergence of like their paths, right? Where and again, right, it's like almost in a way mortals have freedom because they have freedom to die, and it's like you have these immortals, and it's like if you're in a bad situation, you're kind of you're just screwed. Like you're stuck there. You know what I'm saying? Like when she was there with Prim, it's like, dog, like you're just, however long he chooses to keep you, as however long he like has you with his grips, like you're just there for that long, and you're not finna die. So you know, like just seeing that as well. I do agree, Joseph, that like I kind of do wish we had more time to spend like in the world of like the, like with, you know, with the kingdoms and with all that other kind of stuff. I understand again and can appreciate why they didn't go that route. But I did feel like it was such a cool world, and there were a lot of things that were set up in it that could have been, you know, fun to explore. The king dude or whatever, when the attacks were happening and they were like running through the sewers, Lindsay, she had remarked, she was like, yo, he's running like a rat. Like he literally looks like a rat. Like the way he was running and the way that like they did the angle and the way he was animated, it really was like he was a rat, like scurrying through the sewers. Like it just was something about that imagery that I thought was like hilarious and also like just very and subtle that they did it that way. I think that again, it was indeed very anime. I don't mean that as a pejorative. I mean it as like, I feel like it's like quintessential, like in that way. Like if you want to understand kind of like emotional depths of this art form and of this style of film and media, that like this is a thing that you can go to get a gauge of like of where it can go, right? Like it's not all just Dragon Ball Z. You know what I'm saying? Like if that was a lot of people's like introduction, that's not all that it is, right? You have this as well. You have everything in between. But I think that it's a great example of how beautiful and thoughtful and all those things that it can be. I thought that the end, I ain't gonna lie, I did get a good chuckle at the end. I'm not gonna lie, just because like
you guys are sick.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, it because it was just something where it was like, I don't know, man. For me, my brain, it's a lot of it's timing stuff. Right? It's like it's timing, and I think that for certain things, I think that there are certain kinds of timings that my brain just finds comedic, right? Like it just sees it as comedy, and I think that like it just hit those beats, like in those last moments of like when she cries. And she's like, I can't keep my promise. Like I said, I'd never cry. And then she just like falls on the ground and all the like petals go everywhere. I just could not help it. I couldn't help it. Even though I understood like the gravity of that, like it's like literally like in the title, you know, roll credits, you know, type stuff. But like yeah, it was just, I found myself in several situations where it was like, where it really was masterful and I understood the emotional significance of it. But like there was something in my brain that just would click to something else. Again, like Lelia jumping off of a castle. That is not funny. And she decides that like it's better for her to just not be here. That's not funny. But boy, did I laugh when she jumped. I cannot like I could not help it. But
I need better friends. I need to start a podcast with better friends.
Yeah. You need to have a podcast called the Better Friends Podcast.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. But all in all, yeah, it was a really great movie. I actually did really enjoy it. I could see myself watching it again in time. I don't know if you guys watched dubbed or subbed. I can only get my hands on subbed.
I went dubbed this time.
I feel like I would have had a way different experience if I saw dubbed.
Dubbed.
Yeah, I found what I found readily available was subbed. So that's what I watched.
I had mine with freaking commercials.
Oh, that's tough.
Great.
That's tough. Yeah.
I was like, do I want to spend $3 or $4? Yeah, freebie. Oh God.
Freebie.
Commercial. Oh, my good old freebie.
No. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah. Oh,
I hope the ads were at least well placed. It wasn't like your mom's gonna break her promise. Whopper.
I wish
I would have known it was better. It was on Freevee, bro, because I would have pulled up Freevee on my computer. And what I do is I just have up like 20 ad blockers.
Nice, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
I think what I did was ad TikTok itch. Got the TikTok itch.
Yeah.
I
agree. Yeah.
I mean, here's my thing with this movie. The movie could have gone further into the castles and this and the dynasties and the wars and the politics, but the backbone of this movie is the dynamic of mothers with their children between Maquia and Ariel, or Lelia and Medmel. And even to some extent, I would say Racine with Maquia, the elder who tells her, don't fall in love, don't leave your people. I mean, it sets up the automatic assumption of like, oh, she'll meet a man and blah, blah, blah. Like, because...
Right.
And that's
what I thought.
And what she's saying is like, it sets up, honestly, a really grim outlook on the world. Because Racine is old. She's the oldest of them there. She's the elder of the Eorf tribe. And she's saying that to love someone is to be alone. And I think the reason I find that so grim is because this is the knowledge she has obtained as the elder of a tribe of immortal people. That loving someone ultimately leads to... And I know that... Barlow, the guy who turns out to be like half Eorf, the guy who was there when she found the baby, he made a comment about Racine saying like she probably would have lightened up with more time. But on paper, that's a pretty grim outlook to say that because of who we are, because we're alive forever, loving anybody ultimately means feeling alone and being alone. Because you will lose that person. Yeah. And the ultimate resolution on the backbone of this movie was, I know, but I'm happy that I loved him. Like being his mother was, it wasn't always easy, but it made me happy and it was my privilege. And it's hard to not cry even talking about it. There's so many... I don't know if I can even catch them all, but there's so many... To be perfectly honest, I'm very close with my mother. There are few people in my life who have as much weight with their words or their actions as my mother. If I do something goofy and everyone else thinks it's funny, but my mom doesn't, I'm like, nope, I should jump out my window right now. And there's so many small little things, like at the end when she goes to her son's deathbed and, you know, he's old and she still looks exactly the same. And because early in the movie, she tells him, you are my hibial. The hibial is another word for the looms that they weave that tell stories. She's saying, this child is my story. Like, not I'm going to live through my child like a vicarious parent, like you'll find on TLC or something, like a reality show. But, like, this child is my story, and, like, I want that. I'm okay with that. To the point where even when he makes a mistake, almost burns the house down, and puts it out with the hibial that she was trying to preserve, and he burns a part of it away. When she comes in and lays it on top of him at his deathbed, I already started f***ing losing it. Because I'm losing it now talking about it. Because the idea was that their story wasn't perfect. It was charred, it was marred, they had to go from place to place, they had to upend their lives constantly. It was not a perfect story, it was not an ideal story, but it was their story. And so she brought it and laid it on him at his deathbed. And I was like, damn it, man. Like, it got me. Stuff like that got me. It's like a little thing, but I don't even think I noticed it when she laid it down the first time, that it was the one with all the burn marks on it. Because that was the one that at first she was like, don't touch that. Like,
yeah.
And then he almost burned the house down, and that's what put it out. And I mean, yeah, there's the goofy stuff like the tickle monster, blah, blah, blah. But that's real stuff. Parents do that stuff.
I almost forgot about that, yeah.
And when he pulls it out, when he knows that she's mad at him, I was like, oh, Joseph's battery died or something. When he pulls out the little tickle monster thing, I was like, damn, man, that's real. Like, that's a real thing. Like,
yep. kids just not able to tell when it's like this is not
when kids misread the situation, so they try to do something goofy their parents would do for them to try to like diffuse the tension because they don't know what to do. Like, I was like, that's a real thing. And she's just like not feeling it, and she's like, and he tried to do something nice for her, and she is just like so done. She's like, she doesn't even like acknowledge you did a nice thing for me. It's like, why do you make this hard for me? Yeah. Like, why did you make this tougher for me than it already was today? Jeez, kid. Like, but ultimately, like, I'm skimming through the movie and there's a pause, and the pause is on the subtitle of her saying, I'm really happy when he laughs. Like, ultimately, he even leaves to join up with the soldiers because he feels like it's the only thing he can do to keep his mom safe. Like, he wants to make his own path. He wants to make his own way. But he wants, even though there's this tension between them, he genuinely cares about her. So he does this because it is a way of keeping her safe. It's keeping where she is safe. He knows she needs to be hidden. And of course, the other scene that got me was when he, when she's helping deliver his child. God, man, that whole thing was so intense. And when he wakes up and she's there to take care of him after the fight, before she says goodbye to take Lelia and go be with her tribe again, and to let him live his life that he needs to live. All that kind of stuff like got me, man, because it poses a lot of really funky questions, like, is motherhood earned? Are you a mother because you love the child? Are you a mother because you birthed the child? Can a child renounce in the way that Ariel does in this movie and say, like, I don't think of you as my mom anymore? For me, the backbone of this movie being the relationship of mother and child. I'm not going to say it goes totally unexplored in movies. But I think this setting, this premise where it is inevitable that the mother will outlive her child, I think it's a unique premise, and it leaves this looming dread over the entire story.
No pun intended.
Oh, wait, what?
Loom.
Oh. All right, fair enough. And I mean, 10 times over, do you think he's going to get stabbed or something while
yes.
Maquia is helping him give birth to his child?
That's what I thought.
10 times over, you think that's how it's going to go. And it doesn't. She gets the chance to see him again, to be his mother again, and to be the mother that loves him enough to say, you need to live your life, and I need to live mine. And then still being his mother and showing up for him at the end. I think I think she was a good mom.
Yeah, for sure.
I think she was a good mom. And I think the little speech that Ariel gave with his wife about, my mother taught me what it means to love. And so that's what I'm going to pass on to my child. Like, my mom gave me that, and I treasure that enough. That's going to be how I raise my child. I was like, damn, man, that's beautiful. That's my pick. My pick is Maquia. It is, it did have a theatrical release in the U.S. It grossed, it doesn't surprise me, it sounds like a small number. It grossed about $4.35 million worldwide. I don't know what the budget for it was. It doesn't say. I know animation is pretty expensive to produce, but this is the kind of movie I kind of see making its money back through streaming. I watched it on Crunchyroll, and I watched it the first time I saw it, I got it from a library. So, I mean, when I watched it, I was watching it in my room on Bluetooth headphones on a laptop. The computer was on my desk, and I was sitting on the floor, just crying. Just crying at my tilted laptop screen facing me on the floor. There's one article that said that really the villain of this movie is time. And it's a good point, because in some ways you can consider time to be kind of the ultimate villain. Yeah,
but my very last thoughts are just, honestly, it was great. I did enjoy my time. I probably will end up watching it sometime again in the future.
Did your wife cry at all?
No, I don't think so.
Man.
But she was more like in and out. She was doing something else.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So it was more so me sitting down and just walking and watching it.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, one of the things, and I'm not even really going to talk about it, but something I didn't really talk about is like shot composition or this or that or angles or this, because animation has such an edge. Camera can go anywhere. It can do anything. But to me, some of the most
impactful, morph between like 5 different lenses.
Yeah, but to me, the most impactful shots, of course, there's the one where she cries and all the flowers go up. I just think it's beautiful. And honestly, even on a technical level, I love the shot of her tearing all the jewelry off.
Yeah, that was actually very, that was interesting. That, now that you said that, actually was a very standout piece of animation. Just kind of like that sequence of when she's tearing all of it off, just the animation of it, the colors, the reflectivity, of it. Now that you say that, it was very, because I don't feel like there's really any other shots throughout the rest of the film that have those elements kind of all tied together. I don't quite know how to put it in words right now. Yeah, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Between the camera movement, the acting, the sound design of it all coming off and hitting the floor, and it just, there are, most of the scenes are dealing with the love of a mother. This is one of the very few scenes I feel like deals with the anger of a mother and how pure and passionate and absolutely unadulterating that anger can be. And I think the team did a really good job pulling together to make this scene feel like unmitigated fury. There's just not a lot of scenes where you're like, oh, I do not want to be next to them. I wanted to be next to her, oh my gosh, you poor thing. But I did not want to be the target of of that anger. That was a very one of, if not possibly the most ferocious moment of the entire story. And I think the team on a tech level did a really good job pulling it together and contrasting it with everything else, because there's frustration, there's love, there's panic, there's, am I being a good mom, am I being a bad mom? And then there's just this one part where it's like, hey, 100% all of you. And on a tech level, I think it just came together really well. It's a gorgeous movie. It's a good story. The foreboding that hangs over it.
Sorry, Jack.
It's all good. The foreboding that hangs over it, I think, resolves in, yes, it's inevitable way, but I just think it's beautifully done. I really like this movie a lot. It's unique. There's even a little post-credit sequence. It's super short. It is literally a still. Did you see it or did you not?
I don't remember seeing it.
Really? It is a I can't screen share the movie while it's playing, I don't think, but I can. Someone made a thumbnail of a review for the movie and it says, if you didn't cry, something is wrong with you. Here it is. It shows there's sound effects. It's a soundscape along with this still.
Oh, okay.
So you have Lelia over here in the back with the last Renato, the last dragon, and Maquia and the others are back here, and essentially the tribe is kind of beginning again. The Eorfs are, I'm not gonna say back to where they started, but the Eorfs are together again. And they have the last dragon, which really the only purpose of the dragons were for political and military might. So them dying was a huge inconvenience to the kingdom of Mezarte, but the last one went with them because they all kept dying to this inevitable red-eye disease. But the last one stays with them. And you know what? Out of the deal that Lelia had over the course of this whole story, she should have the last dragon with her.
Yeah.
100%. So I take it to be as like Lelia's the elder now. And she's the leader of the Eorfs from here on out. As they begin anew. They left their tribe, had some very defining chapters of their lives take place, and now they're with their people again. I think it's beautiful. I think this is a very beautiful picture, and I think it paints like it gave me a little tint of happiness to see this be the ultimate ending to the story.